No contact hits the avoidant harder than you think so often when someone decides to go no contact, especially after loving an avoidant partner. They sit with this quiet pain. They wonder, do they even care that I'm gone? Are they just relieved that I've stopped reaching out? Was I that easy to walk away from? But here's what you need to know. No contact doesn't just help you heal. It confronts the avoidant with everything they've been trying to avoid. Avoidants tend to suppress, they minimize closeness, push people away when things get too intimate, and rely on space as a form of emotional safety. So when you finally go silent, they don't feel relief, they feel unprepared, exposed, and powerless. Why? Because for the first time, they're not the ones in control of distance. They're used to dictating when there's space, when things are too much, and when the emotional thermostat needs to be turned down. But when you take a step back, not as a tactic, but as a boundary, you do something powerful. You shift the dynamic. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer giving them permission to run. You've removed the thing they depended on most, your constant emotional availability. And here's the truth. Avoidants aren't immune to pain, they just delay it. They feel it after the silence. After they check your profile and see no updates. After the text they expected never comes. After they realize they don't have access to your love anymore. That moment, that is the reckoning. But let me be clear. Your goal is not to destroy anyone. Your goal is to protect your peace. To stop investing in someone who doesn't invest in you. To finally let someone feel the consequence of not showing up. So if you're sitting there wondering whether no contact is doing anything, it is doing everything you need it. And maybe, just maybe, it's doing more to them than you'll ever see. Avoidants often delay emotional processing, and this is one of the most misunderstood aspects of post-breakup behavior. When someone with an avoidant attachment style experiences a breakup, especially one where the other person initiates no contact, it might appear at first like they are unaffected. They may not cry, they may not reach out, they may even look like they've moved on effortlessly, but that surface calm is not peace. It's suppression. Avoidants have spent much of their emotional lives protecting themselves from vulnerability. Deep connections feel overwhelming. Intimacy can feel like pressure. So when a relationship ends and their partner withdraws completely, they may initially feel a strange sense of relief, not because they didn't care, but because the emotional intensity has finally been turned down. The space they've been craving is now present. But that relief is temporary. It's not healing, it's escape. Here's where it gets tricky. The avoidant doesn't feel the breakup when it happens. They feel it in the absence that follows. They don't process emotions in real time. They don't sit and reflect immediately. Instead, they distract themselves. They might bury themselves in work, casual flings, hobbies, or anything else that keeps their emotions at bay. To the outside world, it can look like they're thriving or unaffected. But beneath that controlled exterior is a slow buildup of unresolved emotion, grief, regret, confusion, even guilt. These feelings don't disappear, they just take longer to surface. And when they do, it's often when the avoidant begins to sense the finality of your absence. Maybe they check your social media and find nothing. Maybe they realize you haven't texted, haven't asked how they're doing, haven't tried to fix things. It's not just that you're gone, it's that you're really gone. That's when the emotional delay catches up. That's when the feelings they've been avoiding begin to knock louder. Avoidants aren't immune to loss. They're just late to arrive at the scene of it. This delay is often misunderstood by people who go no contact. They assume the silence means indifference. But in reality, the avoidant is processing everything on their own timeline. What feels like coldness is often fear, an emotional overwhelm masked as detachment. And unfortunately, by the time they realize what they've lost or how much it meant, it's often too late. The person who loved them has already begun to heal, has already stepped away for good, and is no longer emotionally available. Understanding this doesn't mean you should wait for them or hope they come around, but it does help reframe the experience. It helps you see that just because they didn't react right away doesn't mean they didn't feel. Their emotional timing is just different, and often far more painful, because it comes with the realization that they avoided not only you, but their own feelings all along. No contact removes their control over distance and closeness, and that is something the avoidant is rarely prepared to face. In relationships, avoidantly attached individuals tend to manage their emotional discomfort by regulating how close someone can get to them. They create distance when they feel overwhelmed or when intimacy becomes too intense. This is not always intentional or malicious. It's often rooted in deep-seated fears of vulnerability, engulfment, or past wounds that taught them closeness equals pain. So when they are the ones to step back or withdraw, it feels safe. They're doing what they've always done, controlling the pace, the depth, and the intensity of emotional connection. But when the other person goes no contact, especially someone they once felt emotionally safe with, that balance of power suddenly shifts. For perhaps the first time, they are no longer the one deciding when communication happens, when closeness is allowed, or when the relationship dynamic can reset. Instead of being the one stepping away, they're now the one being left behind. This loss of control can feel destabilizing. The silence becomes deafening, not just because of the lack of contact, but because the avoidant no longer has access to the safety net they once had, your emotional presence. Whether they showed it or not, they relied on your love being available, your forgiveness always in reach, your patience waiting in the background. When you go no contact, all of that disappears. You're not there to soothe them, to fill the silence, or to make sense of the emotional space between you. And for someone who's always managed their anxiety by pulling away, having someone else do the pulling triggers something they aren't used to confronting: helplessness. The avoidant may not immediately show distress, they may act indifferent or even relieved, but internally, a shift begins to happen. The script has been flipped. The control they once held is gone. And with it goes the comfort of knowing they could return when they were ready. Now, they have to face the discomfort of uncertainty, something they work hard to avoid in relationships. Suddenly, they don't know how you feel. They don't know if the door is still open. They don't know if you're waiting or if you've already moved on. This unpredictability creates a type of anxiety that avoidants aren't used to. In their usual patterns, they're the ones managing the rhythm of connection and distance. But with no contact, that rhythm stops. There's no pattern, no reassurance, no fallback. It becomes a mirror, one that forces them to look at the consequences of their behavior and perhaps even face their own emotional limitations. They may try to rationalize it, pretend it doesn't bother them, or even convince themselves that it's for the best. But deep down, the loss of control over closeness and distance shakes them, because for avoidance, control isn't just about the relationship, it's their primary method of feeling emotionally safe. And when you take that away, it forces them to sit with emotions they've worked their entire lives to avoid. Emotional availability was their safety net. Your constant presence, reassurance, and willingness to understand them offered a kind of stability that the avoidant, ironically, came to depend on, even if they never acknowledged it. Avoidantly attached individuals often build emotional walls, not because they don't want love, but because love feels risky. They fear that getting close will lead to rejection, loss, or a loss of self. So instead of opening up, they keep a distance. They might pull back when things get intense, avoid difficult conversations, or dismiss emotions as too much, Yet behind all of this self-protection lies a quiet reliance on the emotional support their partner provides. When you're emotionally available to someone, especially someone avoidant, you become their unspoken anchor. You're the one who listens patiently, shows up consistently, and loves them even when they don't make it easy. They may not ask for it directly, but they feel your presence. They notice when you reach out, when you check in, when you forgive. Over time, your emotional availability becomes the invisible thread that holds the relationship together. And without even realizing it, the avoidant begins to depend on that presence as something reliable, even if they still keep you at arm's length. The irony is that they push you away when they feel too close, yet the knowledge that you'll still be there afterward becomes their emotional cushion. It gives them the illusion of safety without requiring them to confront their own fears of intimacy. They might say they need space, but part of them is confident you'll still be around when they're ready to come back. You've always been there, after all. You've always reached out, even when they pulled away. But when you finally go no contact, that emotional cushion is gone. The net they never admitted they needed has disappeared. And it's not just about your physical absence, it's the emotional void it creates. They can no longer count on your check-ins, your affection, your willingness to hold space for them. They can no longer lean on your steady love in the background of their avoidance. This hits hard because it reveals a truth they've worked hard to ignore. They needed you more than they were willing to admit. The silence you leave behind is not just silence, it's the absence of emotional warmth, of unconditional support, of someone who truly saw them, flaws, all, and without it, they're forced to sit with their own emotional capacity, or lack thereof. They have to confront the emptiness that was being filled by your love, your empathy, and your consistency. Losing that emotional availability isn't just uncomfortable for the avoidant, it forces them to reckon with the reality that they didn't just lose a relationship, they lost the one person who gave them the rare experience of being emotionally understood without being pushed to change. And that kind of loss doesn't fade quickly. It lingers in the spaces where your presence used to be, quiet, steady, and deeply missed. You're not trying to hurt them. You're reclaiming your emotional boundaries and self-worth. When you go no contact, it's often after a long period of emotional effort, patience, and giving. You've likely tried to have conversations, made space for their discomfort, and adjusted your needs to avoid overwhelming them. You may have sacrificed your own emotional expression just to keep the peace, hoping they'd eventually feel safe enough to meet you halfway. But over time, that imbalance becomes too heavy to carry. It's not sustainable to constantly overextend yourself while someone else keeps retreating. Choosing no contact doesn't mean you've stopped caring. In fact, it's often the opposite. It means you've cared so much for so long that you finally realized caring alone isn't enough to sustain a relationship. Love isn't just about staying, it's also about knowing when staying is costing you your self-respect. No contact is not revenge, it's not a strategy to make them suffer, it's a boundary. It's a decision to stop allowing yourself to be emotionally drained by someone who isn't showing up for you in the way you deserve. For the avoidant partner, your decision might feel abrupt, even confusing. They're used to you being there, even if they never express their appreciation for it. But what they may not have realized is that your presence wasn't unconditional in the sense of endless tolerance. It was a choice every day to stay in a space that didn't always feel emotionally safe for you either. And when you stop choosing that, it sends a very clear message, not of punishment, but of self-protection. This is where true emotional growth begins. Not just for you, but possibly for them too. Because when you remove yourself from a dynamic where you've been undervalued or taken for granted, You create space for both people to reflect. For the avoidant, that space is often uncomfortable. They may struggle to understand why the energy they used to rely on is suddenly gone. They may misinterpret your silence as coldness or bitterness. But it's not bitterness. It's the peace that comes from no longer begging someone to choose you. Reclaiming your emotional boundaries isn't selfish. It's the only way to heal. It's the moment you stop hoping someone else will validate your worth and start giving that validation to yourself. That act of self-honoring is powerful, and it often leaves a stronger impact than any emotional outburst ever could, because it shows that you no longer need them to change for you to feel okay. You've chosen to change the way you show up for yourself. The avoidant may or may not understand that right away, but in time, they'll feel it. The absence of your energy, your warmth, your consistency, it leaves a gap they didn't anticipate. And in that gap, they may finally begin to see the weight you carried and the quiet strength it took to finally put it down. No contact shifts the dynamic from chasing to self-respect. And that shift speaks louder than any words ever could. In relationships where emotional imbalance is present, especially with someone who has an avoidant attachment style, it's common for the more emotionally available partner to find themselves in a position of constantly giving, fixing, or pursuing. This pursuit doesn't always look dramatic. Often it's subtle. Initiating every conversation, being the first to apologize, tolerating emotional distance, or trying to prove your worth through patience and understanding. Over time, this becomes a cycle. One person pulls away, the other leans in. The more one retreats, the more the other feels the urge to close the gap. But when you go no contact, you disrupt that entire pattern. You stop chasing, stop explaining, stop reaching for someone who won't reach back. Instead of trying to earn closeness or validation, you turn inward and choose self-respect. That act of stepping away without drama or desperation is a powerful declaration. I'm no longer available for a one-sided relationship. This shift is not easy. For someone who has spent time emotionally investing, trying to hold a relationship together, choosing no contact can feel like giving up. But it's not giving up, it's letting go of the illusion that more effort will change someone who isn't ready, willing, or capable of meeting you emotionally. When you stop chasing, you break the cycle. You reclaim your power. You move out of a reactive role and into a grounded one, where your energy is no longer controlled by someone else's inconsistency. For the avoidant partner, this shift can be jarring. They may not fully understand what's changed at first, but they'll feel it. They're used to a certain dynamic, one where they retreat and you follow, where they distance themselves and you close the gap. That pursuit reinforced their control, and whether consciously or not, it reassured them that they didn't have to face their own discomfort or fear of intimacy. Your constant presence protected them from the emotional consequences of pushing you away. But when you stop showing up in that same way, they're left to sit with the space they created. Now they have to ask themselves the questions you once wrestled with. Are they coming back? Did I go too far? Why aren't they trying anymore? The uncertainty they once caused becomes the uncertainty they must now live with. And unlike before, they can't fix it by reaching out casually or testing the waters. You've stepped out of the dance, and that silence carries a different weight. It's not a tactic, it's a transformation. By choosing self-respect over pursuit, you show them, and more importantly, yourself, that your worth isn't determined by how hard you try to be chosen. You teach through absence what your presence could never fully convey, that you are enough, and you don't have to chase someone who keeps running. That kind of quiet strength speaks volumes. So, to wrap it all up, no contact isn't just about walking away or shutting someone out. It's a powerful act of reclaiming your peace, your boundaries, and your self-worth. It challenges the avoidant partner in ways they aren't used to because it removes their control. exposes their vulnerabilities and forces them to face emotions they've long avoided. While it may feel painful and confusing at first, this silence is often the catalyst for real growth for both of you. Remember, your decision to go no contact isn't about punishment or hurting someone else. It's about protecting yourself and honoring the love you deserve. It's about choosing to stop chasing and start respecting your own emotional needs. And that is something no one can ever take away from you. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope this helps you understand a little more about why no contact hits avoidance harder than we might think, and why it's such a crucial step in healing and growth. If you're going through this right now, know you're not alone and your feelings are valid. Take care of yourself. Keep holding your boundaries strong. And remember, you deserve love that feels safe, steady, and true. Goodbye for now. And thank you again for being here.